Welcome to the Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. I'm so happy you found us. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on I-Fiber One News Radio, KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9.
Well, the sun is shining. It's going to be a nice day. Finally, Friday. And I hope you're geared up to have a great one and a good weekend. Daybreak show now. Morning, Spencer. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. And yourself? Good morning to you.
It's nice out, looking already. And, this week wraps up the, first blush of summer here. And it's definitely feeling like it out there.
It really is. It's going to be a little bit of a cooler weekend, which is good. It'll let us regroup from the heat. And then the warmer temperatures will come back next week. But it should be pretty mild this weekend, so it'll be nice.
That's awesome. Well, today in the news, updated numbers on COVID in Mason County. Masks in the state are being required starting today, so we'll have a lot of news on that as well.
And I'll check that weather for you. They say there's a slight chance of showers this afternoon. I just don't believe it, but we'll give you the full weather ahead. We'll also talk with Mason.
Think about how muggy would be.
No, thank you. We'll talk with Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury and Health Director Dave Windom to talk about the face coverings requirement that does start today statewide. Dr. Alex Apostle on this week's graduation. Also, North Mason Regional Fire Authority Chief Beau Bakken checks in and introduces the person who has taken over for some of the responsibilities of Jeremy Hicks, who you may remember was a regular on the show. And finally, Steve Kramer has the weekend fishing report.
Mason County was notified of 2 additional Mason County residents that tested positive for COVID-19, bringing the total to 46 positive cases in Mason County. Both cases are asymptomatic and direct contacts from an outbreak in another county. Mason County Public Health is conducting contact interviews. The patients, 2 females, both in their 20s, are currently isolating at home.
At least 2 sheriffs in Washington are objecting to Governor Inslee's statewide mandate for people to wear masks in public to slow the spread of coronavirus. On Tuesday, Lewis County Sheriff Robert Snazza told a group, "Don't be a sheep." Snazza was talking about Inslee's face covering directive, which the governor announced earlier this week. Wednesday, Clittitat County Sheriff Bob Songer also blasted Inslee's order in an interview with Oregon Public Broadcasting. Songer called the governor an idiot and says he's overstepping his bounds, violating people's constitutional rights. Inslee said it was disappointing that any law enforcement officer would encourage illegal behavior. The order making masks mandatory takes effect today. A violation is a misdemeanor. Again, we'll hear from Mason County Sheriff Salisbury throughout the morning, including his thoughts on this. Also, we posted a PSA from retired General Jim Mattis about face coverings on our Facebook page.
And we received a statement on face coverings from the State Patrol. Washington law enforcement agencies continue to focus on education and engagement regarding state orders related to coronavirus. The statewide face coverings order is a public health and safety measure. It is not a mandate for law enforcement to detain, cite, or arrest violators, but rather an evidence-based and safety-focused directive meant to slow the spread of a potentially deadly disease. There's more on this on our website, iFiber1newsradio.com. Now, time to check in with Steve Kramer with the morning's fishing report.
This is Steve Kramer from Kramer Tackle with this week's fishing report. We have some shrimp options coming up in Hood Canal. The 26th and 28th are shrimp days. The days we've had so far this season have been very good, so I'd try to get out there if you can. If you'd rather chase steelhead, there's not a lot of options right now. The Wynoochie's putting out a few. I've heard of a couple coming out of the Cowlitz. Just not enough to get me excited. I have not been chasing any steelhead yet this summer. The bass fishing, on the other hand, has been very good. Been getting lots of 3 to 5 pound largemouth in quite a few local lakes. I would target Long Lake, Pattison Lake, Island Lake, or Mason Lake. They've all been doing very well. Mornings and evenings throwing black buzzbaits have done the best. Another fun option would be to hit the ocean for some bottom fish. The lingcod and sea bass fishing has been hot. If you don't have a boat, you can book a trip out of Westport for a pretty reasonable price. So if you can, please take a kid fishing, and don't forget my site, KramerTackleandGuide.com. This has been Steve Kramer. Thanks for listening, and good fishing.
Well, thanks, Steve. And again, today on the show, more from Dr. Alex Apostle. We'll hear from Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury and Health Director Dave Windom on the face covering requirements that start today. Beau Bakken is in from the North Mason Regional Fire Authority, and a little bit more throughout the day. Good morning to you. It's Daybreak.
From the iFiber One News Radio studios, you're listening to Daybreak.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes here on the Friday edition of Daybreak. On the phone line, we have Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury, also Dave Windom, our health director for Mason County, getting us through coronavirus. Today's a big day, guys, as today's the day the governor has mandated that masks be worn. Dave, what can you tell me a little bit more about this and how and what's the governor saying here?
Okay, so actually the order is from the Secretary of Health. So the governor did the announcement, but the order comes from the Secretary of Health. So the Secretary of Health really falls underneath the State Board of Health, who is in charge of all the health of all Washingtonians. So that's outlined in the Constitution. They give him their authority, and he is the one who brought the order forward. And it's Order 20-03 from the Office of the Secretary of Health.
And this order, does it have, I'm seeing a lot of folks that are pretty unhappy with what's going on here starting today. And is this enforceable? Because I'm seeing different sides of the perspective here on how this order works and what it really means.
Well, if you read the fine print in RCW, and I can give you those RCWs that people might want to know, it's RCW 43.70.130 and RCW 70.05.070. And there's some enforceability there, and that is just not the direction we are heading.
Sure.
That is would be a tough use of resources. Our resources are better in education and getting people kind of around the COVID crisis in total rather than enforcing this mask wearing thing. So it's there, but it's not the focus that the county is going to take.
Sheriff, let's talk a little bit about that. If you see a gathering of folks or one of your deputies is near a business and notices a gathering, what's going to happen there? Will the deputy have a mask and talk with the folks about the order from the health director, or how will this work out, you think?
Well, I'm sure there'll be probably somebody that calls and complains about something. If we get a complaint, if somebody's still there by the time we get there or something, we can certainly talk about it. As Dave mentioned, and we have put out a statement from the Washington State Sheriff's Association, the State Patrol, and most of the agencies in the state of Washington regarding the covering directive, that it's going to be educational purposes. I know that, Jeff, I look at this a little bit differently than maybe a lot of the sheriffs or a lot of people. My background is in public health, and believe it or not, and that's what I went to school for. But it's not because of that. I grew up in this community, and I look at a lot of the people that were business owners and people that were my teachers when I was a kid that are now in that vulnerable group of people that we keep talking about. I also know some young kids that have their special needs that are vulnerable to this with breathing associated disorders. And my point is let's just be respectful. If I'm asked to wear a mask somewhere that might not even be covered on this because it makes people feel better, it will keep us safer, I'm willing to do that. Do I agree with every single thing that's written in here and how it's going? Not exactly. Am I going to come out yelling and screaming about one thing or the other? No, I choose to look at it, and our office looks at it to be respectful to other people and other people's health. So it's not this solid black and white order that they're trying to make it into, on the written word of the paper. It's the educational purposes of it.
Dave, this has really become a political issue almost, where one side of the spectrum does not feel that the masks are necessary or even helpful in any stretch of the imagination, where the other side of the aisle perhaps is a little more compliant with these orders. That's got to be difficult it's just,
Can you explain why you think it's become so political and how difficult it is for the safety and health of everybody when there is these two opposing sides on this issue?
I think it relates, Jeff, to kind of the polarization that's going on so many different issues. I mean, we saw it last year with vaccines. You have a very adamant crowd about using them and an equally adamant crowd about concerns about effectiveness and safety. So using that as a background, I can see how these things split people apart. And what we're trying to do is to say, if you look at the tools that public health has in the toolbox, the first tool that was used was the stay home, stay healthy order. And, it did bring down the peak, which was the goal, but it also was, very hard on our economy. And that's just not a tool we want to use again. That's just not a place that we'd like to go. And I think that even the Secretary of Health was talking about that. But we have this tool, which is a mask, and given the choice of wearing a mask or going back to this very expensive thing where people lost their jobs and lost their livelihoods, homes, the mask is probably the least expensive method and tool that we have currently in the toolbox until a vaccine comes out, and there's no guarantee on when that may happen.
Are you concerned as you look across the country and the numbers, the 7-day averages that seem to really be spiking? I see that the numbers in Washington, and I know that like Yakima County is an outlier that's pushing the rest of the state up and types like that, but those 7-day trends seem to be back on the rise. Is there conversations? We just got into phase 3. If this does not work out, are there conversations to have to go backwards?
Yeah. Well, the governor certainly said he'll take us backwards. Secretary of Health said he'll take us backwards. That certainly is not our goal. What we're finding is many of these cases are family related, especially when you have family gatherings where there's a lot of touching, hugging, that sort of thing. Weddings, for an example, are a great example. Yeah. And it's getting passed that way. And we're able to track that. We're getting very few cases of what I would call caught in the wild COVID, where we have no idea where it came from, is, caught at a store or something. We have almost no cases of that. It's really a familial transmission.
I mean, is that because of those early orders by the governor, and then we saw that early work in at least the Shelton School District to kind of tighten things up and lock things down? Is that a direct result of that? I'm seeing other states now that did not take that first initial real tight ratchet, and they're now starting to do that. I noticed that Texas is putting a hold on elective surgeries, which is something we did, a few months ago. So I just see these trends across the rest of the country, and I wonder, I get that masks are the best way to do this right now. And are you guys able to? Do you have extra masks available for people? Are you still encouraging people to make their own? And then what does this order really do now for folks? Do you have to, if you're in a business, do you have to wear a mask? Is it up to the business owner, or how's that work?
So to answer your last question first, that order's been out since the 8th of June.
Right.
It requires the businesses and the employees to wear masks. So there's no change there. And there is no requirement in Mason County through this order for business owners to require someone to wear a mask before they come into the store. It's that business owner's choice. In Yakima, it's a different deal. Yakima, it's required to buy or sell. So, but that is not the case in Mason County. I want to be really clear about that.
Right. Okay, well, I guess we'll continue on through this. We are now in phase 3, so the health department is sending out biweekly updates on their updated information, unless there's emergency information to share along. So we'll continue to do that. As we move through the weekend and into the summer, these gatherings are likely to only increase, especially as I start to see, this is around the time that the school's out and there's the traditional car shows and people are getting pretty antsy. And it seems like this, like you said, this is the most cost effective way to keep commerce moving to avoid having to shut everything down again.
There's a great resource online on the governor's webpage. It's on how to get started. And it's a business form, and it's a fill in the block and check the box sort of a form that shows how your safety steps that you would take to open a business. And what we've encouraged, especially nonprofits to do and churches to do, is go pick up that form, and it really walks you through the mindset of the things you need to look at to keep your population safe, whether it's a church group or a car club or any other civic organization. Although it's designed for business, it is great for nonprofits.
Yeah, go ahead, Case. I was just going to say, I saw, I was talking with Karen Leaf and Jennifer Barria from the EDC, and they showed me that form, and it was very comprehensive and a good checklist for everybody, because as we were talking with them, who knows who from the state may come by and take a look to make sure that you are fully complying with all those orders.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about the compliance on these things, Jeff, I'd like to move to say is that Mason County is been in a pretty good position. And the reason for that is I think when people choose to draw the hard line in the sand on one side or the other, I think they start to lose perspective of what the overall goal is on this. And it's to keep people healthy. And none of us want to be having to deal with this right now. And as we move through this, I would just ask that the people that seem to be doing well and getting along well are the people that extend a little bit of grace to other people and a little bit of respect. And that seems to be moving us along real well in Mason County. When you start drawing the hard line in the sand that I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, it just creates controversy and makes it more difficult for everyone. So we're looking forward to moving through to ask for voluntary compliance and just for people to be respectful of others and extend a little bit of grace as we move forward so that we can continue in a good position that we are in Mason County.
Dave Windom and Casey Salisbury on the air this morning as the start of the order from the Director of Health for the state, but announced by the governor earlier this week. Thanks, guys, for talking with me, and we'll check in next week and see how this has been. It'll be a week the next time we check in.
Okay, take care.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to Daybreak on I-501 News Radio.
Good morning, everybody. Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes. And Friday mornings, we get a chance to check in with Dr. Alex Apostle from the Shelton School District. And Alex, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Spencer. It's nice to be here with you.
What a great week it was. We, on Tuesday, started gathering early at Shelton High School for the graduation ceremony. Unlike any graduation ceremony I think we've ever been a part of, it all seemed to go so well.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the entire program. I believe that Heather King and the graduation committee and the administration at the high school, they really came through. They did a fantastic job in planning the event. The students that were participating in the graduation seemed very happy, and it went very, very well. I enjoyed seeing the parents coming through in their decorated vehicles.
Yeah.
It was a festive time in a very difficult time. So I'm proud of our kids. I'm proud of our staff and proud of the parents. And the class of 2020 finished strong, and they're going to do great.
One thing that I thought back at my graduation and the ones that I've seen, as I was watching the procession there, it felt. It was a little bizarre, obviously, because people were milling about and the cars would come by and the parents were there. But one thing I really appreciated was at the way that we did it this year at Shelton. After the name was announced, the parents got to cheer, which normally isn't the case. During those large groups, they wait till the very end.
Right.
That was one thing that really stood out to me for some reason.
Well, I think it was wonderful. It was very personal considering everything. The parents, did a very fine job in supporting the ceremony. Everybody participated in a very positive manner. Cooper Studios did a tremendous job taking the photos, which was very much appreciated by everybody. Cooper Studios does a great job.
Yeah.
So my thanks goes to them and appreciation. But it was a very, very nice event. It exceeded my expectations. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Well, all right. Graduation's done. The school year's done. What's going to happen next year is the next big question. I know the subcommittees have been meeting with some over 200 community members to help navigate the district into the restart of school next year. I was sitting in the communications subcommittee, learning a little bit more about ways the parents and families would like to receive information. A great way, of course, still as with these interviews with you, but lots of conversations have been happening across the community, and you're starting to see some of the results from surveys, and that will help lead you into some decision making for next year.
No question about it. We just sent out a survey, and we asked that the survey be completed actually as of yesterday, and I haven't seen the results, but I've just seen my email and the results are there. That's going to be very important information for all the subcommittees as we move forward. There's no question that regardless of what the reopening plan looks like, it's not going to be perfect. But we're going to do our very best to reopen our schools. If everything is somewhat normal, we'll reopen schools, and it will be a very collaborative effort as we move forward. And the one thing that I've said to the subcommittees is to keep it as simple as possible, because we'll be refining whatever plan we put forth, or we'll be refining it as we go forward, of course. Sure. With new information that may come in. So we're getting a lot of input from a lot of people, and we're going to do our very best to do the very best for our students. So, well,
I know that the district's website is currently and constantly being updated with information. We'll continue to provide updates for families throughout the summer as we move closer to however the start of next year looks, and just continue to keep everybody safe and healthy, and work towards that goal of at least some sort of, return to some sort of traditional classroom, however that may look into the fall.
Well, we're going to do our very best, and I want parents and families and students to know that, and staff, that the health and safety of everyone is of paramount importance. It has been, and it will continue to be. Right. So whatever plan we put forth will include the health and safety of everybody.
Dr. Alex Apostle, you have a great rest of your day. Have a good weekend, and we'll check in next week.
You do the same, Jeff, and thank you very much.
Have a good one, Alex.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
From the iFiber One News Radio Studios, you're listening to Daybreak.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes here on the Daybreak Show. Got two great guests on the Zoom video call this morning to talk about the North Mason Regional Fire Authority Fire Chief Beau Bakken, and new to the force, Lacey Newman. Lacey, how are you? And Beau, hello.
How are you, Jeff? I'm doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Beau, we got a couple things to talk about, but first let's introduce everybody to Lacey.
Well, perfect. I know on your show you've had Jeremy Hicks on for quite a few times, updating us on fire issues, Fire Prevention Week, talking about different things that we've been doing here in the North End. And Jeremy got a promotion and took a job with Mercer Island as the fire marshal over there, which is a big deal for him. I'm so excited for him. But who I am excited to introduce, who we've been working over the last couple months to kind of procure, is a new, I don't want to say Jeremy Hick, but a new person for that position. And we were lucky enough to find, I like to call her one of our own. And what I mean by that, coming from North Mason, I'll let her share a little bit on that. But Lacey Newman comes to us and started on June 1st in the position that Jeremy previously held. It's a little bit of a reincarnation where it's more on the focus on the community than it is the fire marshal stuff. But just super happy to have Lacey on board.
Lacey, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm actually from Belfair. I grew up here, and my dad was a volunteer here just about 20 years ago, back when it was District 2.
Wow.
And then my sister volunteered here as well. So I kind of grew up playing the patient for a lot of drills and everything. I grew up around this fire station. I myself didn't exactly feel the calling that they did initially. So I went off to college and I got my bachelor's degree in psychology. with minors in family studies and sociology. And I actually went off and became a flight attendant. So I've been doing that for 6 years. And through the flight attendant work, I wound up dealing with some medical emergencies that passengers would have, and realized maybe I actually kind of did have that same niche as other members of my family. So I went ahead and started volunteering for Central Kitsap Fire and Rescue, and volunteered there for about 1.5 years as an EMT. And then they offered me a full-time position as a firefighter EMT. Unfortunately, I did get injured in Fire Academy and wasn't able to recover from that injury. So I'm going to have surgery soon to recover from that. But now I was fortunate enough to get picked up in emergency prevention here at North Mason. So
I'm just thinking about some of the things that you would do out in the public, and I can imagine some of that higher education could really key in on some of those things, especially with the outreach and talking with folks that are in situations with heightened stress and unsure scenarios.
yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of, when I went and got my bachelor's degree, I wasn't exactly sure what field I would end up in, but I just knew that whatever career I was going to have, it was going to be involving helping people and working hand in hand with people. So that was kind of my focus then, and now it's, I think, going to really pay off. So,
Beau, I know you do a lot of outreach in general, and so this will just continue on with that. I'm thinking about the life jacket programs, or the smoke detector exchanges and things like this. This is going to be a real chance for folks to be reacquainted with Lacey, who's got family, growing up, to see her back representing North Mason, but really able to connect with more members of that community up there.
Yeah, one of the things, and Lacey showed up for her first day of work. She was here for about 5 minutes, and before we could even give her to the keys and the code to the front door, we said, we've got a job for you. And I know Jeremy in the past has probably talked a little bit about our safety days, where we go into the schools here in North Mason, and we partner with law enforcement and with MACECOM and different partners to provide safety stations where we take about 1,100 kids and walk them through these safety stations. Obviously, with schools not being in session, we weren't able to do that this year, but we had a kind of a community coalition get together along with Mason County Public Health that said, hey, we see a lot of different trends. How about we take safety days and we make it virtual this year? And so Lacey was tasked with that within 5 minutes of coming in the door for her first day. And within a week, she took our safety days and made them virtual. We had 5 different safety video station scenarios that she ended up filming and putting together and choreographing. And we got those out within a week to the students that are here in North Mason. She did a phenomenal job.
I'd imagine, too, that this helps reach the rest of the schools throughout the whole of Mason County, too. You can team up with the other districts.
We absolutely, and also we ended up pushing it out on our social media sites. I believe that we're up to about 11,000 views, so we know that's hitting more than just the kids in the school that are in just North Mason districts. So I think that we're seeing a lot of shifts. This might be another one where we expand our reach. We certainly want to target our kids that are in our schools locally, but if we can expand that reach, let's jump on that.
Well, let's talk about more expansion in the
Sure.
Northeastern Regional Fire Authority. We have the coming on board soon, the new campus. You and the sheriff's office are kind of working together. What's the progress?
Yeah, so we ended up passing the bond to fund the station and the emergency management campus here in North Mason back in November. And one of the things folks rightfully think that, you pass the bond and just a couple of days later the fire station's going up. And there's a lot of background work that has to happen, which we have been working on every day since the bond passed. And that's included getting a bond sale, which we got an historic low interest rate when we went to our bond sale. It was just as the pandemic was kicking in and the markets crashed. We don't like seeing markets crash, but we tried to make a little bit of lemonade out of lemons by selling our bonds at that time, and ended up saving us over the course of the bonds about $1.5 million for taxpayers. So we struck gold with the timing on that. And then the next process is that we're going to go through what's known as the design build delivery method. And we're going to be the third fire district in the state that does that. So we're blazing a little bit of a trail. but it allows us to sit down. Normally you would go out and you'd have a designer. The designer puts together a plan. You then take that out to bid, and a contractor has got to bid on that plan. There's no discussion. There's no be able to figure out costs, trying to reduce costs. And in the design build process, what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to go out and have the contractor, the architect, and us all sitting around the table at the exact same time. So the contractor, or excuse me, the architect might say, hey, here's an idea for this particular portion of the building. And the contractor might say, yeah, we can build that. Here's how we do it a little bit more efficient. That wouldn't happen if there was a build process, but there would be, we can have those conversations in this process. So we just selected our design team last week. I say a design build team last week. They're an outstanding outfit that has has designed over 300 fire stations. So they have a tremendous amount of fantastic portfolio. We're going to be sitting down on the 24th, so that's actually next Wednesday, and figuring out what this building is ultimately going to look like. We've got a pretty good idea. We did quite a bit of design work back when the bond first came together in November. It's really rounding out that work, and we anticipate within a couple of months of getting that design work done, we've got steel coming out of the ground, and we're getting this thing underway. And, of course, we're still in constant talk with the Sheriff's Office and with the DEM. They'll be moving into our existing fire station, so we'll be right next door to them. We'll have one emergency management campus where we've got all of our public safety partners working together, and I'm super excited about it.
That's great news, and more news to share coming up. We're going to put a pause on it right now, but when we check back in with you guys, we'll find out how the progress on that is going and some other things as we move through the summer. And a very busy time all across Mason County, so a reminder that the great folks at North Mason are there to assist if there is any issues or emergencies. Lacey, it was nice to talk with you. Nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you too.
Beau, good to see you, bud.
Same you, and I guarantee I'll have a haircut the next time we connect, okay?
It's a great idea. Great idea. All right, then you guys have a good one. We'll check in next time.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you so much for listening to today's Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. Again, I'm so happy and honored you found us and chose to listen. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of some of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on I-501 News Radio KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9. Thank you so much again, and talk with you next time.